Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm so glad to see you all. This is great. We have quite a few participants here live with us on Zoom, which is really exciting. Let me introduce myself. My name is Kelsey Derringer, and I am the Professional Development Coordinator for BirdBrain Technologies. So, primarily, I teach teachers how to do coding and robotics. I used to travel around and do that a lot, but nobody's really traveling around and doing anything right now. So, I'm doing that now live from Zoom. And then we also are going to have a couple other presenters with us today. Tom, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Tom. I'm the founder and CEO of BirdBrain Technologies. My background is basically as a roboticist. I was one of the developers on the Hummingbird Kit and the Finch robots, and then made those into products. And yeah.
Now he's our fearless leader and captain of, of BirdBrain. And then you're also going to get a chance to meet the real Matt, not just robot Matt. Matt is a real person, a human man with
Hello.
a face.
Yes. Hi. So my name is Matt Chilbert. I am the learning media producer for BirdBrain Technologies. In addition to doing to making robots and teaching some workshops, I kind of manage all the technology here and make sure it gets out to all you folks.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're going to start by just letting you guys know, whether you're here on Zoom or participating live from Facebook, that this bit.ly link here, bit.ly/BBT remote, and capital letters matter when you're doing a bit.ly link, so capital, 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 lowercase, that is actually going to take you to a slideshow. So I'm going to go over and open up that slideshow real quick over here. There we go. And just kind of show you what you're looking at. But we're actually not going to present a slideshow here today because we try to keep things as tactile as possible during our webinars and whatnot. So I'm just going to kind of show you what it is, what it looks like, and what some of the resources are there. So if I kind of present this for a minute, it goes through and has different sections. So we are actually going to cover 3 different ways to do remote coding. Nets blocks, using the remote control feature via Zoom, and then also MicroBit Classroom. So we're going to cover 3 different ways to do this and talk about how to do it and the advantages and limitations of all of them, and then close out with some kind of ways that you can join in and try this out. But basically, the audience that we're hoping to reach today is teachers who are interested in robotics, who are interested in coding, who maybe have a robot at home, but how do you get your kids to do the robot thing when they're at home and you're at home, and how do you connect those? Well, we figured out 3 different really good ways to do that. So we're going to start off with Tom. And Tom is going to talk a little bit about nets blocks and what that is, maybe how you found out about it, Tom. And then we'll go through kind of how to do it, some of the advantages and limitations. So take it away, Tom.
Okay. So I first saw nets blocks about 2 years ago, I think at the SIGSI conference. And it is a research project at the Vanderbilt School of Engineering. And it is based on the Snap programming environment, which the Hummingbird bit already supports. So Snap itself is a blocks-based programming environment based on Scratch 1.0 or 1.3, and Nets blocks is basically based on that. The secret sauce of Nets blocks, what's interesting about it is that it adds the ability for projects to talk to each other over the internet. So each project that gets created in Nets blocks essentially has like its own unique ID that other projects can then use to send messages back and forth. And so I kind of knew about this technology. And about 4 weeks ago, when it was clear that schools were going to be closed for a long period of time, I realized that we could make robots available for remote programming by anyone over the internet using Nets blocks. So over the last few weeks, I spent some time kind of creating both example programs for other people to use to do this themselves, as well as creating a page where with a bunch of robots that are already set up. They're actually set up in my house. 2 of them are set up in the office right here where I am. And occasionally they come to life. It's kind of neat. And then, yeah, so setting it up so that there's kind of 5 robots that anybody can program, and then setting up the tutorial for how you do this, how you make your own version of this. So I'm
if
going
I
to
can interject
briefly
there
talk
just-
about that, but
Oh,
sorry, Kelsey, go ahead.
Oh, if I can just interject for just a second there. If I go back over to our slideshow here, oh, let me pull
Take
that
it.
back up. Sorry. And if I go up to the nets block section, so Tom's going to show you how to do this. There's a great tutorial on our page here, but you can also check out these robots that he's talking about that are set up in his house by going to our remote coding page. So I think the dragon and the gnome here are set up in the room with you, right? So
Yes,
if
they
anybody
are.
wants to start messing with that, we will probably hear servos whirring around right behind Tom. So if anybody wants to play with that, again, go to this bit.ly link here, bit.ly/bbt remote. That'll get you to that slideshow, and then you can do what Tom is talking about right along with him. So, all right, back to you, Tom. Thanks.
Okay. So yeah, what was really cool about Netsblocks is that I realized that I could set up these robots and just leave them running at any time and let anybody program them day or night. And that's, I think, the biggest advantage of this as a system is that it's just, you can have it 24/7, and it's very, very easy once it's set up to just send people a link and say, this is your link to program it. And then the projects that I've created essentially only allow one person to take control of a robot at once. But they do allow anybody to kind of start altering their code in anticipation of getting the robot free. And somebody just started the dragon, so good job. Go internet. So I'm going to share my screen and kind of quickly show what that looks like. Let's see, where's the share screen thing? There it
Down
is.
at the bottom somewhere, yeah.
All right. So here's the remote robots page, and then here is.
Oh, we're not seeing your screen.
Oh wait, I will hit share.
There we go.
There we go.
So yeah, so here's the remote robots page. That's the page of robots that you can program now, and then here, linked off of remote robots, is a tutorial on how to make your own remote robot. And basically, to do this, you will need a Windows or Mac laptop. We can probably get Chromebooks working. We can, right now, it only works with the Hummingbird Bit robotics kit, but we can also most likely get the Hummingbird Duos working. If you have an older Hummingbird Duo that you want to do this with, just contact me. I basically will develop it if you need it. And then you need to have a webcam to view the robot. Now, what's nice about Netsblocks in a live setting is if you're connected to it, you will actually see it like run in real time. So I'm going to pull up the server file. I know I put a link into the chat box. Did anybody open that link? If somebody wants to try connecting.
We're gonna stop sharing your screen for just a second, Tom, and go to gallery view. So we're gonna stop your share for just a moment so that we can go to gallery view. And if anybody has that pulled up, if you want to try remote coding, raise your hand like Atacha. Put your hand in front of your screen like that. Who wants to give it a go? Eileen does. Hey, Eileen. The early bird gets the robot.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna unmute you, Eileen, so that, and you'll need to unmute yourself actually, so that we can hear you. And Tom can kind of talk you through how to. So Tom, if you can keep your video up of you and your little bot there.
Yep.
And talk Eileen through how to connect and then how to program the little bot.
So there's this. So I just put it in the chat box again, but basically there's a long link, and you'll want to copy and paste that into the Chrome browser.
Okay.
And then wait for it to open. And all of you can do this actually right now. You don't, anybody can do this at the moment. And then once you're there, you'll want to hit C to connect to the robot. And we'll see if that
On
works.
your keyboard, you'll hit the C
yeah.
key to connect to it.
And somebody just connected because you can see it went to X, which means the robot's not available. And then you can hit the green flag to run kind of a sample program, which should, yep, there you go. So you are controlling that over the internet.
Spotlight, Tom.
Now you can also, change that program. This particular robot is really simple. It's just a pan tilt head, which means it's just 2 servos. So you're not going to be able to do all that much with this one. The ones that we have that I've set up in my house have like 3 or 4 servos each, lots of LED lights. So you can, like, every now and then I see the dragon do some really complicated motions, and I know somebody just made a pretty cool program. So what's nice about this live is, just like in Scratch or Snap or any of these blocks programming languages, when you click a block, you expect to see it happen. And when you're doing this live, you can basically see that happen. Like, you will see it within a second. So if you just click, a position servo block, you'll see it move within a second.
Yeah. And Tom, if I could interject really quickly, someone had asked in the chat window, are we correct in saying this doesn't work with a Chromebook right now?
So there's some nuance there.
Okay.
Setting up the robot and running it at your house, you'll need a Windows or a MacBook. To control this, you can actually use any device. So Chromebook, Windows, Mac, I've tried it on an iPad. Anything running a Chrome browser will actually work fine.
Okay, so students can use a Chromebook or an
iPhone,
iPad or all the different things, but if you're going to set it up, you need a Windows or a Mac at your house as a teacher, but students can use all kinds of different devices.
Yeah.
Looks like we have another question from Gail. I'm going to come spotlight you, Gail, and make sure you're unmuted. There we go. Oops. Wrong button.
So
Spotlight you.
I attempted to open it up, and I saw the program for a split second, and then it went black. So I tried it twice, and it would go black. The third time, I made the assumption it was because somebody else was programming, but the third time I used the link, it did open.
Okay, yeah, it could just be the Chrome browser, trying to hit refresh or trying to hit enter a couple of times is probably the right thing to do. It seems like this, like NetsBlocks in general and Snap, is also kind of sensitive sometimes to the version of Chrome. So it's good to make sure that the browser is updated. But yeah, that seems like just hitting refresh a few times is probably the best option for that kind of issue.
I love seeing this little bot move as you're talking. Eileen, are you still controlling it? You're muted.
And I might be. This is fascinating stuff.
So can you talk us through like what you're doing in your, because I kind of saw the code changing a little bit. Are you changing anything in your code?
I was taking a look at some of the numbers. I didn't want to change too much as you're talking about the robot. I'm just kind of curious, is there someone else that's trying to control it at the same time?
So assuming
I actually thought I jumped in and got control at that very beginning, but now I can't figure out how to relinquish control.
Oh, so if you have control, hit X, and that should disconnect it. And we'll see, it'll actually change from an X to a check mark. Yep, there you go.
I just disconnected. Yep, there we go. Thank you very much, Tom.
Can have a
I'll
turn.
stop playing around now.
Now
I couldn't figure out what to go with.
Yeah, so the program that I've set up on the server side, like on the local side, will basically disconnect someone after 20 minutes to give someone else a turn. And if they haven't done anything in 5 minutes, then it also disconnects them. Now, those are things that can be edited in the program. It's just essentially like a Snap program. Aaron, I see you have a question.
Yeah, so I actually went through the tutorial, and I've set this up and it worked, which is awesome. My question is, I know, I was like, yes, this is great. So I actually, this week, my students got on a Zoom meeting and designed their robots. And so this weekend, I'm going to make little bot robots based on their designs. My question is, if I have them use NetsBlocks, can they take the link to the code I sent them, and if they've created an account, can they save that link and save it as their own? And will that still work with the server client, like the server one that I have created, as long as it's running on my computer?
Yeah. So each time you send them a link, that link, it's basically creating a local copy of that.
Okay.
And so they can save it to their account. They can edit it. It's not going to change anybody else's code. They're not linked together like that. So
okay,
that's why, like, I sent it to all of you, and some of you have probably made changes to it, but it doesn't like affect the other people's changes. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Can you also speak, Tom, to one of the advantages of NetsBlocks is that actually relates really well to the Littlebot is on the Littlebot project, your servo motor has a range of 0 to 180 degrees. But if you tilt the head of the Littlebot up too much, it will pop off. So that's a fun thing to troubleshoot when you're making a Littlebot, but a less fun thing to try and troubleshoot when it's in a different house. So NetsBlocks lets you prevent that from happening. Can you speak to how that works a little bit?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen here, and I will show you exactly where I do that. So most of the code for this server file, which again, I've provided like a starter for everybody, and I'm really, really excited that Aaron's already made it work. So it's in here, like so it's in the stage, and what's in the stage is basically kind of a loop that runs at all times that's active right now. And then these kind of blocks that happen when I receive a message, and that's when I receive a message from a client. And so if I go to when I receive a servo message, first I check if the robot's available, and if it is available, I actually ask them to connect first. So to hit C on their key. So I send kind of a message back, basically. And then I check if they are the right person or the person who's already connected. And if they're not, I send them a message that the robot's in use by somebody else. But if they are, then I actually check. I use this thing called port inbounds, which is just a little block that I created. First to check if the servo is if they're controlling a servo that actually exists. So let's say you have servos 2 and 3 and 4 connected, but not 1. You would use port inbounds and do it from 2 to 4, and that would return true if it was 2, 3, or 4. And then I check, okay, and then I look specifically at which port I'm using. And if the port equals 1 on this Littlebot, I actually set the angle that it can be set to between 90 and 130. So if somebody sends 0, it will just say, no, 0 is now 90, or anything below 90 gets rounded to 90. Anything above 130 gets rounded to 130. And that way I'm preventing people from, setting this robot to something that is going to damage it. So there is some tweaking that you'll want to do for your own robot if you set one of these up, where you'll want to go into this code and kind of change it appropriately. And on the Make Your Own Remote Robot page, I have both written instructions, and I just posted video instructions also for how to do this. So don't worry what I just said, there's a reference for that.
That was actually one of the questions that somebody had was, are all of the steps on the website for us to set this up at home with NetsBlocks and then give us the link to give to our students to remote code?
Yeah.
Yeah. All that is on there, including there's a basic file too, right? That they can build on top of there.
So there's the server project and the client
like
project
a scaffold
to get you started.
And then there was another question of, can students access the background code?
Unless so no. I mean, you could make, you could make it public. You could show it to them and they still wouldn't be able to edit it. So if they were curious about how it works, you can definitely do that. But that wouldn't mean that they would edit your code. Because that's one of the things one of the advantages here that we'll get into compared to Zoom is Zoom screen shares. There's no security hole here. There's no way for them to get into your home network and change things, or a hacker potentially. It's all mediated through this NetsBlocks thing. So as long as you don't give somebody your user ID and password on NetsBlocks, it should be safe.
So what I'm going to do now, Tom, is I'm just going to stop your screen share, and I'm going to go to our the slides over here, spotlight myself a little bit, just to kind of give an overview of NetsBlocks and kinds of its advantages and limitations. As Tom was saying, it's really secure, so nobody's remote controlling your actual computer. And I think the second one is really big. You can set limits on the motors so that they can't break the project. There's a very small lag between user action and robot movement, and if you use a Nest Cam, you can have live remote coding anytime. So just point it at a wall, turn off the microphone probably on your Nest Cam, unless you want your kids hearing what's happening in your house at all times. And We will note, and I should add this to the slides, that if you use a Nest Cam, there's like a 10 to 15 second delay built into the Nest Cam system. So there is a delay when you're using a Nest Cam, but when you're doing it live via Zoom, like synchronously, there's no delay. The limitations are that your students have to figure out how to resize their Zoom windows and their Chrome windows so that they can see both, and that their Chrome window is active, so that can be kind of cumbersome to explain the first time. But once they figure that out, they're good to go. Setting up the server and client files can be a little bit challenging, but we've got a great how-to sheet and a scaffold to start you off on. And then, like I said, there's that Nest Cam little bit of built-in delay. Does anybody else, we'll go to gallery view here, does anybody else have any other questions for Tom about NetsBlocks before we go on to talk about how to do remote coding via Zoom and the remote control feature in Zoom?
So I see one other about using a Nest Cam as the only option, and I don't think it's the only option. I honestly, 4 weeks ago, knew nothing about live streaming video on the internet, and it was the easiest option, which is why I picked it. But in the tutorial, I talked through some of the other things that I've found since then that we're exploring. And I'm also honestly just looking for advice. If there are people looking for things, people who know more about live streaming, especially 24/7 live streaming, I would be happy for advice on this.
Okay, great. So there was one last question about whether this requires good internet access to be able to make this work. I think in general, that's probably true of all of these remote coding systems, is that they're using the internet. So like the better internet you have, the less glitchy it'll be. Would you agree? And
especially the video. I mean, it's hard to make it work without a reasonable video link. So yeah, you kind of need to have reasonable internet. In terms of working with Duo, not yet, but I think I can make that work. So give me a week or two.
Tom did this over a weekend. It was like some Sunday night where he was like, I got it.
3 weekends.
Yeah,
3 weekends.
3 weekends. Okay. For me, it was magic and it happened overnight, but that's never how things work, is it? Okay. So I'm going to have Matt come on over, and Matt is going to transition us to talking about how to do remote coding via the remote control feature in Zoom. And I am going to leave for a minute.
All right. So for those of you that don't know, Zoom actually does have a built-in remote control feature. And it is probably the easiest of all of the remote coding options that we're going to be providing for you today. However, it comes with some potential drawbacks. But before, maybe I'll just launch into it by just sort of giving some folks the opportunity to control this robot here, and I'll kind of step through the process. So what I'm going to do, and this is going to get kind of wacky here, I'm going to have to sort of like screen share. So get ready to enter the Twilight Zone here. All right. There we are. Oh no, okay, this is crazy. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and down here on the bottom, hopefully everybody's seeing this, I just clicked screen share. And then from here, I get to choose which window I want to screen. So you get to see all of the programs that I have open. And this sort of points out the first obvious security feature or problem is that I have now exposed everything that I've got running on my computer to whoever's watching right now. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight my Snap screen, which was open. I'm using Snap as an example, though we could use any number of programming languages. Since you're not actually sharing the program, you're just sort of sharing your screen. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in the block so that everybody could see these a little bit better. Let's see. There we go. Hopefully that's a little bit more clear to everybody. And you can see that what I've got here is a little program that says when up arrow is pressed, or when down arrow is pressed, set servo 1 to 0. When up arrow is pressed, set servo 1 to 90. And then the left and right arrows control some of the other, one of the other servos. Now, I'm probably very small up in the right-hand corner of your screen. Is that correct for those of you watching? So, as I code this, or as I hit my up arrow and my down arrow, it's probably rather difficult to see what's going on. Now, you can sort of like noodle around with those different, with the size of these windows so that you could better see what I'm doing here. But the reason I'm kind of explaining it to you this way is so that I could provide one of you with remote control to my computer here. So I'm going to go back to screen share. Here we are. And then up here in the upper right-hand corner, you see that there is this remote control option. And when I click on that, check it out. This is everybody that's in our Zoom meeting right now. So who'd like to? Let me. It's going to be difficult to go out of screen, out of screen share to see the gallery view. So can somebody unmute themselves and say their name, and the first person to do it is going to get to control my. Unmute yourself. Say your name.
Aaron.
Oh. Aaron. All right.
And you're today's lucky winner of a brand new coding robot.
And, let's see. There you are, Aaron Winter.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you actually have control of my screen. So if you want, you could use your mouse on your computer, and you could actually control the mouse that's on my screen. There you are. So you have the opportunity to sort of like change some angles there. And as you hit those buttons on your computer, it will control my the robot that's right here.
Try your left and right arrows and see what they do on your keyboard.
There you go. So that just it looked like you hit one of the up or down arrows. That would have opened or closed the mouth here. There you go. Oh. There. Yeah.
You made that.
There
Check
you
it
go.
out. And I mean, maybe you could kind of talk through this for everybody here. Like, is there a lag there? Is it pretty quick from when you hit that button to when it?
It's about 1 second lag.
Yeah. You know, so that's not a horrible lag, but it does sort of, you know, it has something to do with the experience of live coding, right? To have that momentary lag. You know, and something else I want everybody to notice right now, I feel like I'm pointing out all the drawbacks because some of the advantages are quite obvious here. But one of the other drawbacks is that only one person is coding right now, right? Only one person is working on the screen, whereas with NetsBlocks, everybody could have opened that program. Everybody in this meeting could have been sort of, you know, noodling around with that code, and then sort of chime in one at a time to control the robot. In this situation, one person, one code. So this setup makes a lot more sense for smaller groups, or at least that would be my recommendation, to use this setup with smaller groups. Do you still? You're welcome to keep playing with this. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and end the screen share.
You can go ahead and end.
Okay, so I'm going to end that screen share. I could. There's a number of ways I could actually end remote control. So I could just hit abort control, or I could stop screen share and we re-enter the Twilight Zone before coming back to the BirdBrain studio. So yeah, that is remote coding through Zoom. And if I can open again, let's see. Let's see if I can get back to that screen. Oh no. So here's the how-to. Again, this is our this is the slideshow that everybody has access to. Advantages: it's quite easy. It works with any programming language. So like I said, I sort of demoed this with Snap because that was open. However, the Hummingbird works with Scratch 2.0 offline. It actually works with MakeCode, but we're going to get into some perhaps better options with MakeCode in just a moment. You know, this would also work with Arduino, or just say like a makey if you're doing a Scratch project online. So you know, while we are BirdBrain Technologies and we're focused on a lot of BirdBrain products, there's a lot of options when doing remote coding. This actually does allow for the use of tablet and smartphones, which is really cool. So you could actually use your tablet to control Snap. And it's got some cool built-in features, like you could use like the whiteboard feature and all of these other things that aren't available if you're using a desktop computer or a laptop. However, not all of these interfaces were designed to be used on a tablet, so it could be kind of clunky from time to time. Small lag, as Aaron was mentioning, it's about a 1 second lag. And then, of course, the obvious security the security concerns. You are actually opening up your computer to anybody with whom you share your screen with. And you're also handing over control of the actual computer. I'm not sure if any of you have ever tried to fight over the same mouse. This is a daily issue that Kelsey and I have here, because we have 2 stations set up with 1 mouse. So that it could get difficult to lead a class if you and a student are fighting over a mouse.
The beginning or the end of a very good friendship. Fighting over a mouse.
And then obviously only one student could work at a time there. So let me see if I could. Oh man, I've moved my Zoom screen. I'm all over the place now. Here we go. All right. So before I hand this over to Kelsey, were there any questions
There's
about?
a couple of questions.
Oh yes.
I love Eileen said, I am geeking out here. I think we all are, Eileen. There's so many cool options for how to do this thing that we've all been struggling with now. Someone was asking, can we use the remote coding with Google Meet since the district banned Zoom?
That I actually am not sure of. I don't know Google Meet as well as I know Zoom.
You could do NetsBlocks or MicroBit Classroom. Both of those would work fine via Google Meet, but the thing that Matt just shared is Zoom specific.
I can't say 100% if that's true, and even if that's true now, I can't say that that's going to be 100% true if you're watching this a week from now. It seems like things are changing very quickly in this world. I can't speak to the remote capabilities of Google Meet right now.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Heather had a question. Do you have to do anything specific to switch how you're controlling the Hummingbird? After I used MakeCode, I couldn't connect to BirdBlocks.
Do I have to do anything specific to how you switch to controlling the Hummingbird after you make? Yes. So I think what you're seeing there is actually has to do with the file that is loaded onto the MicroBit. There is a Bluetooth hex file that you need to load on in order to get your MicroBit and your tablet to speak with one another over Bluetooth connection. When you download a MakeCode file, it overwrites that hex file. That allows the tablet and the MicroBit to speak with one another. So re-download that bit file. I think we could even provide you a link in the chat. I'll do that in just a moment. And you should be working with your tablet again shortly. Any other questions before Kelsey takes over? Yes.
I have a question. This is Heather again. I would really like to use NetsBlocks with this because we've been using Finch robots for a while, so my kids are familiar with Snap.
Yeah.
So will I have that same issue when I try to switch over to NetsBlocks? And if so, is there something I need to download for that?
In the setup that we're using here, we are actually connecting via the Bluebird Connector, which is a Bluetooth signal. However, I've actually, and Tom, maybe you could chime in here, I've actually not used NetsBlocks without the Bluebird connector. I would imagine it would work fine over the USB tethered system as well, right?
Yeah, I was originally using it with the USB tethered version of the Hummingbird, like USB tethered, but you still have to be running the Bluebird connector. It would just be in USB mode instead of Bluetooth mode. So the Bluebird connector definitely needs to be running while you are because it's what establishes the connection between your computer, including NetsBlocks, with the Hummingbird, whether that connection is USB or Bluetooth.
Yeah.
I had another question related to that too. When I was setting this up, I was able to get it working with the USB, but I couldn't get it working with Bluetooth. Is there anything specific? Like it connected to my computer Bluetooth, like my device said it was connected, but the Bluebird connector said it wasn't connecting.
Excellent.
Do you have a MacBook or a Windows computer?
It's a Windows.
Yeah, so you need the Bluetooth dongle on Windows computers.
Okay.
Even if your computer has Bluetooth, we've been trying to figure out how to make native Windows Bluetooth work, but it's getting to the point where we're almost willing to like make it work, but there's just so many Windows laptops out there that have different levels of Bluetooth, like, yeah.
Okay, so I would need to purchase that dongle then to make it work with that. Okay.
Or just use USB for now. Yeah.
And Heather, I just wanted to go back and make sure that answered your question. I feel like by throwing in the Bluebird connector, we may have thrown a level of confusion on top of a relatively straightforward question. Could I, I just want to check in with you, make sure you're feeling okay.
I'm going to play with it a little bit later today. I'm kind of at a point where I know a lot of little things here and there about stuff. I understand the coding from teaching, and I understand, how the servos and all that kind of stuff work, but now I'm just trying to figure out the remote things. So I feel a little lost with some of that stuff right now.
Yeah, and there was just another question asking if this works with the Hummingbird Duo. And I could say with the Zoom method of control, the answer is yes, because it has much less to do with the hardware, right? That's on my end, and much more to do with the software that's being controlled by the students. So anything that you're able to do on your computer, if you're able to get your Hummingbird Duo working on your computer with whatever system you use, whether it's Scratch Offline or Snap, it's going. You'll be able to just let your students do effectively what you'd be doing on your computer by providing them access to your computer. Does that make sense? I hope. Okay. And I think we're running a little low on time, and the MakeCode Classroom is something I'm really, really excited for you to hear about. So I'm happy to answer any further questions offline. Is that okay? Thank you, everybody.
All right, and any questions that you guys might have that we did not get to today, whether you were on Facebook or anywhere else, you can email us info@birdbraintechnologies.com, and that email address will get to the right person, whether we're troubleshooting or just kind of asking more general questions, anything like that. Anything that we don't get to in the webinar today, be sure to email us there. Okay. So I'm going to talk us through a third way to do remote coding, which is to use MicroBit Classroom. So I'm going to go over to the internet, and I'm going to kind of make it a little bit smaller so that I can talk to you and go through it, because all of this stuff is on, all of this, what I'm about to talk you through is all online here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, actually I'm just going to go to our slideshow and click this open. So MicroBit Classroom, and this is classroom.microbit.org right here. Great. And so this opens, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit because this is more what it'll look like for you. So it's really easy to set up your classroom, and as I understand it, the idea behind this, it's been in the works for a while, and the idea behind this is kind of that it's set up so that a classroom full of kids kind of in the same room with a teacher in charge, the teacher can see what all of the kids are working on at any given moment in MakeCode. So I'm going to set up a classroom, and I'm going to have anybody who wants to join who's here on Zoom. If you're not joining from Zoom, don't join, because it's only good for about 30 people to join at once, so just people on Zoom. So I'm going to name my activity. I'm going to call it Remote Coding Test. Great. I'm going to choose my programming language of MakeCode, and I'm going to launch my classroom. And I really love how they have this set up, because they have these step-by-step instructions. So step 1 is to set up your code. I say, where it says do that on the editor page. Where's that? And it'll show me. It's right there. Cool. I'm going to go into the editor page. I'm going to add in some Hummingbird blocks so that we can work with Hummingbird. Hummingbird. There it is, Hummingbird bit. So now I have Hummingbird blocks on there, and I'm just going to set up a quick Hummingbird project. So I'm going to make the motors, let's see, I'm going to do this with I'm going to make the motors go back and forth from, actually I'll do it on an A press, that'll be better. On the button A press, I'm going to make the servo number 2, that was the hat, that's really easy to see, go from 0 to 110 degrees, and I'm going to have it do that like 4 times, I guess, something like that. Oops. 110 degrees. So it's really easy to set up your code. You're just programming in MakeCode like you would normally. I'll zoom in a little bit on it so you can see what I'm coding here. I'm going to add in some pause blocks. We're going to pause a half a second in between. There we go. So now this is going to make his hat go up and down. So now I've set up my classroom here. So now I've got the blocks that you're going to need in order to kind of riff on this or make your own version of this code all set up. Great. I'm going to go back to the instructions. So the second part is share the joining details. And that's on the dashboard page. And if you say, where's the dashboard page? It'll point that out. I really love how MicroBit has set this up. So now if you're here on Zoom, go to microbit.org/join. So open that up in one of your Chrome browsers and then choose these things: red, hamster, car, umbrella. So it gives you this little red hamster car umbrella. And then put in that pin, 954009. Someone had asked, am I connected with my Hummingbird MicroBit? Am I connected with it through microbit.org or through MakeCode right now? No, I'm not connected yet, but I will be via USB cord. So I'll keep going through the process and you're going to see how this works. So as you guys join, I will see how many students have joined down here at the bottom. So if you go to microbit.org/join and then you type in red hamster, Aaron's there. Way to go, Aaron. Quick on the jump, that Aaron Whitaker. Red hamster car umbrella, and then these 954009. Sarah and Tanya are there. Way to go, Sarah and Tanya. Star students. Great job. So I'll keep this screen up there for just a little bit longer so you guys can see that combination. But once I have, 10 people in there, then I'm going to, about 5 or 10 people there. Here we go. I've got 7 people. Cool. Pam's there. I've got 8 people. That's pretty good. Okay, I'm going to go back to our instructions here.
They're still coming. They're still coming.
They're still coming. They're still coming. We'll give it like 10 more seconds. See who else can join. We've hit the 10-person mark. Yes. Great. Okay, so I'm going to go back to instructions here. And now I can see you guys working live. So I can, let's see. So if I go here, I've only done this a couple of times. Student code. So now I need to share some code. Oh, I wouldn't share yours. Let's see. Editor. Here we go. I would go back to the editor and I'd share this code with the students. So now I'm going to share this with all of you, and you're going to see the code that I have done. So then if I go to student code, I can see what Becky's working on. It's going to take a minute and load there. There we go. I can see what Eileen's working on. And now you guys on your screens, you students, can start to manipulate that code. So change some stuff about it. Change it to, it looks like Eileen already changed it to the B button pressed. Fancy, Eileen. What's Gail working on? All right. And I can see what you guys are doing in real time here. We're adding some more positions, Greg. Very cool. What's Pam up to? So you can see in a live in-person classroom how this would be great. You can have your computer up front. You can see what your kids are doing. And but what we want to do is I want to get your code on this little orange hat robot. And in order to do that, this is kind of a hack that we figured out yesterday while we were talking with one of the MicroBit member teams, Katie Henry. Thank you, Katie. This is a hack we figured out to get the code that you guys are running onto my robot. So here's how we're going to do it. Where'd it go? Here it is. MicroBit Classroom. So I am also going to open up Control-Shift-New. I'm going to open up an incognito tab and also go to microbit.classroom.org. Is that right? Nope.
No.
Classroom.microbit.org? Classroom.microbit.org is the same thing, but the opposite. Okay. Classroom.microbit.org. There we are. Okay. So I want to, I need to go to the join one. Sorry guys, I'm still fairly new at this myself. So I'm going to go to join it. Share the joining details. I need to go to, there we go. microbit.org/join. Sorry.
Tom wrote the join information in the chat area.
Thank you. Thank
It's a
you.
little easier to
So I
see.
remember it was red hamster. Red
Car.
hamster car umbrella. Thank you.
I just chuckle. No matter what the combination is, I can't help it. I put a story together. 954009.
4009. Thank you. Okay. So now I'm going to give myself a name. I'm going to enter my name, which is going to be Kelsey Student. So now Kelsey the student has joined the class as well. All right. So I, Kelsey the teacher, have not shared this with Kelsey the student yet. But now if I go into the student code, I could take somebody's code. Let me find somebody who's doing something weird to their code. Let's go.
Who are you going to single out?
Who am I going to take a look at here? Who's doing weird things? Regina's doing weird things. Okay, Regina, I'm going to share your code. Now, there's not a way currently for me to share this code with myself, Kelsey the teacher, but I can share it with Kelsey the student. I can share code with other students. So I can go in here and I can share code with students. So I'm not going to share it with, I could share it with everybody, but that would like replace what you're doing. So I'm just going to make it, I'm just going to share it to Kelsey the student. So nobody else, not you, not you, not you, not you, or you, or you, or even you, just me. Okay, so now I'm going to send this code. Great. And if I open back up my incognito tab, code has been sent to you. All right. So here's, who was this? This was Regina's code. So now I'm going to, now that I have this code, I can, if I go to, oh, where's me? Where's my incognito tab? Here it is. Your teacher has sent you some code. So I'm going to use that code as Kelsey the student. Okay? So now the thing that I need to do is I'm going to connect my robot via my USB cord, because MakeCode works via USB. Oops. So I'm going to connect this guy, and I am going to download Regina's code onto my MicroBit. So if I go back here to my incognito tab, I'm going to download and go through the regular process. Select the MicroBit, save it, and now if I go here, you can see that it's downloading. We've got our 5 seconds of panic. If you've taken one of my classes before, remember how that works. Okay. So now if I go back to our full screen here, as I hit the A button, I think something will happen. Yeah. So it's going to do that once. And then Regina's code, if I take a look at that again, Regina's code also had something on the AB button. So now I'm going to hit the A and the B button, and oh, I've got a smiley face, and it's going to go to 65 and 135. Oh, you guys can't see that. So here's A and B. This is what Regina programmed. Looks weird, Regina. I love it. So here's the A one, and here's the AB that Regina did. So that's kind of how MicroBit Classroom works. And now this code, because we downloaded the code onto here, this code is now saved on this robot. So this robot, here, I'll hit A. There you go. This robot is now going to run Regina's code until I put different code on it. So this could be really fun if you've got some kind of gallery wall or something that you've set up, and it's like, all right, you can send different code to different students. So this is something that's a little different from the nets blocks and the snap thing. Students can be working on different code at different times, but it does have to be synchronous. So you do need to, like, this is all going to happen at the same time. But they could be working on different code, and you could say, all right, you know, Greg's been working on the cheetah robot, and I'm going to download your code. That looks great. I'm going to unplug it and put it back here, and that's going to keep running Greg's code until we give it something new to do. But just to kind of reiterate kind of what the advantages and the limitations of this are, I'll go back to our slideshow. It's, again, fairly easy to set this up. And I think one of the big advantages is actually that this is using MakeCode. So it's a really widely used program, and it's supported by Microsoft and the MicroBit team. They're going to continue innovating on this as it goes. Students can work on the same code and do different things with it independently. You as the teacher can see what your student is coding live. That's something you can do with remote coding via Zoom. Something you can't see on NetsBlocks. You can't see what your students are doing synchronously unless they screen shared with you. And then also just MakeCode is a really widely used and a really modern looking programming language. It looks really good and a lot of people use it. Some limitations are that the teacher controls the code that gets downloaded. So if you tuned in a couple weeks ago for our rover, because we have to download it every time, you can't do things like use the arrow buttons to control your robot in real time and navigate a mouse through a maze. That's not something you could do with this MakeCode Classroom, but you could write a program for the mouse using a distance sensor to navigate itself through the maze. There's just a difference in the way that these like live, often Bluetooth connections like Snap or BirdBlocks work versus MakeCode. So another just sort of like difference here in the way that these work, another kind of limitation is that you can only control one robot at a time. That's actually true for most of these, although I think actually I guess for NetsBlocks and Snap, you can connect multiple robots to via Snap or NetsBlocks, right?
That is true. However, you'd have to set up multiple server windows and have them all active at the same time.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the same limitation with NetsBlocks. But with Snap, you can control multiple robots with the same Bluetooth connector. Is that right? You could have Hummingbird 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, I mean, technically you could do that with NetsBlocks also. We haven't done it because there hasn't been necessarily a need where you'd want to have a single project that people are controlling multiple robots over.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think most of these, they're one-to-one. One thing I will say though about MicroBit Classroom that is a little different is I'm not sure it has to be perfectly synchronous. Like you could see a situation where a teacher has 10 students and they're editing their code on maybe a few different robots and the student says, hey, I'm done. Can you test this and maybe take a video for me of how it works? And then you send it back. And so that would be more of an asynchronous kind of scenario where, students are submitting code at different times and you're kind of just taking a video of how their code operates and sending it back.
That's a good point. I think there's, I think we're in a time where we're all using things how we need them to work.
Yeah.
So if you need it to work a little bit asynchronously, like do it, you can kind of adjust from there. We're a little bit short on time for our live stream, although we got started just a couple minutes late. Does anybody have any questions about MicroBit Classroom in particular, about how things work or limitations on it? I might know the answers to some things, but not all things for that. It's fun to play with. Get a few get a couple friends on Zoom, get a robot, and get a couple incognito tabs going, and like you got an evening there. So really, all of these are like it's so fun. The first time we got NetsBlocks to work, and we got somebody in Massachusetts to move something. I think we got him to program the owl. Like it is a hoot. That I didn't actually mean for that to be a pun, but it's so fun. It's such a good time, like seeing them go, oh, like on video while this thing is moving here. It's almost as great as getting to use Hummingbirds live in class and getting to see kids' reactions. But this is, we're all kind of doing the next best thing at this point, and this is the next best thing, to really being there, especially when your supplies are limited to what you maybe have in your house. You can expand what your students have access to by giving them access to what you've got in your house and what you've got available. So it's a really exciting time to try that out. I think we had one final question about NetsBlocks for you, Tom, which was about sensors. Do sensors work with NetsBlocks?
So right now they don't, and that was because initially I was focused on like the 24/7 live streaming of robots, and I didn't understand like how sensors would be all that useful in that context. But I'm planning to get sensors working. The way I'll probably do it is to have just a single sensor so you can have one sensor per project. It can be any of the sensor types. and it'll send information back to the client, and it'll probably update once every second or once every half second. So it'll be slower than a regular sensor, but especially things like the distance sensor or the light sensor, I think, especially in a live context, it would be nice to give access to those. So, so
Okay.
I'm working on it. I'm planning.
All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us. We're going to stop the live stream in just a moment. But if you guys here on Zoom want to hang out, if you have any other questions you want to ask after the live stream has finished, I know Matt and I can hang out for a little bit. I'm not sure if Tom can, but thank you all so much for joining us here. If you were live with us on Facebook, thank you so much for joining us there. And if you're watching this after the fact, make sure that you check out the slideshow that we referenced that has all of those helpful links and tips on it. bit.ly/bbt-remote. And also, if you have any further questions, make sure you email us, info@birdbraintechnologies.com. And if you try this out and you get it working, oh my gosh, please take picture and video. Please tweet at us, at BirdBrain Tech or hashtag Hummingbird Kit. That works for Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We would love to hear your success stories, your trials and tribulations, all of the experiences that you guys have as you're getting this to work. We would love to hear about them and elevate what you guys are doing to innovate teaching and to kind of rethink how we teach robotics when we're in this remote learning situation. So lastly, I do want to encourage everybody, if you haven't yet, to go to our site where we talk about basically all these different things and more, the birdbraintechnologies.com/robotics at home page. That's got all of our live classes. We do Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Tuesdays and Thursdays are student focused, and we always do some remote coding in those. And Fridays are teacher focused. The topics change, so definitely check those out. There's also video courses. If you've never used a Hummingbird before, if you've never programmed anything before, we'll teach you through a series of videos how to use either a tablet or a computer or a Chromebook to program your Hummingbird and get all the lights and sensors and motors and everything to work. And then also there's some really cool video series about some different projects like Robot Petting Zoo and Tiny Drummer and things like that that you can take a look at and inspire your own making and perhaps inspire your students making. And also on that page there is a link where if you don't have a Hummingbird or if yours is locked away somewhere and you're not going to get it back till September but you don't want to wait till then, you can purchase a Hummingbird and we actually ship for free to your house. So you can have your school pay for it and ship it to your house. We can help you work that out so that you can still do the teaching that you are inspired to do from where you are. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for joining us today. We can't wait to see what you make on social media. On Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, you can tag at BirdBrain Tech or hashtag Hummingbird Kit, or you can even tag me. If you have any questions, be sure to email us, info@birdbraintechnologies.com. We can answer questions about purchasing, about learning, about teaching, and about professional development. If you haven't been there yet, be sure to visit our Robotics at Home page. There you can purchase a kit for yourself, learn how to use it, and even join one of our upcoming webinars. Until we see you in class, thanks for watching from everyone at BirdBrain Technologies.